beautiful people, and we are back again to another tutorial here on this channel. So I'm welcoming you to this channel where you can learn how to cut and sew easily. Here on this channel I upload sewing and cutting tutorial with pattern drafting. So I want to thank all my subscribers for your love, for everything you have done here on this channel. I appreciate you all. Today's tutorial shall be the making of a padded straight gown. So this is what I'm going to be making today. Okay, so it's very easy to cut and sew. So there won't be cut from the underbust or the waistline, just straight with pad like so. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be making today. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly click the subscribe button and then hit the notification bell down there to get you an update as I will be uploading my videos. If you want to see more of this video, if you want to see more of my videos, please click the notification bell to get you an update. Okay, so without wasting much of your time, let's get started. Alright guys, these are the material I will be needing for this tutorial. I have my tape measure, my marker, and the long ruler, my hip curve, and then I have my pattern paper as well as my calculation paper and the pen. Okay, so these are the material we'll be needing for this tutorial. Okay, so let's get started. So I want to draw my starting line. Okay, so this line is going to guide me to get every necessary measurement. So the back measurement I'll be working with is 15 inches. I have my bust 37 inches. Okay, half length is 16 inches and the hip measurement is 44 inches. The full length of the gown we are making is 38 and I have my waist 32 inches. Okay, so these are the measurements we'll be needing for today's tutorial. Okay, so the nipple to nipple I have 4 inches. So you are going to add 1 inch for what you are getting for your bust span. Okay, so now I'm going to place my back measurements. So I told you we have 15 inches for the back measurement. So 15 inches, what you are going to do to get this, you can use your tape measure to divide it. This way I'm doing my own. Okay, so I have 7.5, sorry. So this is my 7.5 since I have 15 inches for the back, so divided into 2 is going to give me 7.5. So this place I'm going to mark the neck width. So this is what I'm going to mark, and then I'm going to mark the neck depth. So I'm marking the neck depth, and then I'm going to take my long ruler to square the line, and I will square the line this way. Okay, so if you want wide neck, don't do this or calculation, but if you don't want wide neck, just place your straight ruler the way I'm placing it on the neck depth this way. Just mark like so and place your tape measure and measure what you are getting in your own case. Here I have 5 inches. So I'm going to divide this 5 inches into 3. Okay, 5 inches divided into 3, and I'm placing what I'm getting on that line. So here I have about 1.8. So place whatever you are getting in your own case and mark it. So I have 1.8, and I'm going to curve it this way. Okay, so I'm curving it this way. I hope you saw this. So if you want wide neck, don't do any calculation, just place your curve ruler and curve it like so. You can see the difference. Okay, so that is for that. And then I'm going to I'm going to take the back measurement right here. So I have 7.5 for the back measurement. Okay, I'm going to mark 7.5 and then I'm going to add that to it. This is straight padded gown, so it's going to come from the shoulder line to the length of the gown we are making. So I'm marking 8.5 instead of 7.5 for the back measurement, and then I went down 0.5 for the shoulder slanting, and I'm going to connect it this way. So for my shoulder slope, I'm going to mark the hamula. Okay, so I have 7.8 for my hamula, so I'm going to place it and then I'm going to mark it, and you can mark 8 inches. Okay, so I divided my bust circumference into 6, then I added 1.5, so this gives me 7.8. So this is what I'm marking, and you can mark 8 inches. So my bust point is 10 inches, the under bust is 13.5, and the waistline is 16 inches. Okay, so for my waistline, I'm going to mark the hip points. So on my hip point, for the hip, I'm going to mark 8 inches. You can mark 9 inches or 10 inches depending on how you want it. If you are that tall, you can use 10 or 9, but 8 inches is good for today's tutorial. So I'm going to measure the length of the gown we are making. I told you we are going to use 38 inches, and the remaining allowance will serve as our hem allowance. Okay, and I'm going to connect the dots together. I'm placing my ruler to mark the line, and I'm going to label the line for you to understand. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. I'm marking the line. So I will mark it to the hip length and the full length of the gown we are making. I've connected the lines, and this is the upper chest, my bust line, under bust, waistline, and my hip points. Okay, so I've connected the lines together, and I'm going to place my tape measure on the under bust. I'm going to take 1 inch from the both sides. So this is what I'm marking, 1 inch from the other side and 1 inch on this side. And I'm going to do the same thing I did on the under bust here on my waistline. So I marked 1 inch from the other side and 1 inch here at the center front. So I told you we are going to take 1 inch from the shoulder. I included 1 inch to the back measurement. Instead of me to mark 7.5, I marked 8.5. So I took 1 inch, 0.5 from the both sides, and I'm going to connect this to the bust line. So on my hip point, I'm going to take 0.25 from the both sides. Okay, and this is what I'm going to mark to the lower part of the gown we are making. Okay, so I'm going to connect from the shoulder line to the bust line, and from the bust line to the under bust, and from under bust to the waist line and to the lower part of the gown we are making. So I'm connecting it to the bust line, and I'm going to connect the other one to the bust line. Okay, I hope you saw this. So I'm connecting from the bust line to the under bust, and from my under bust to the waist line. So this is what I'm going to be marking. and then I'm going to draw a straight line, and I'm doing this to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to connect to the hip. I took 0.25 from the both sides, making half an inch. Okay, so I'm connecting to 0.25, and the other side I'm going to connect this 1 inch from the waistline to 0.25 I took from the hip point. I hope you saw this. So we are still connecting. So I'm going to mark 0.25 to the lower part of the gown we are making. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. And I will do the other side like so. I'm connecting like so. 0.25. So this is what I'm marking. So I'm done with marking. So I want to do the side seam. So I have 9.25 for my bust. So I have 37 inches divided into 4 is going to give me 9.25. That's 9 1/4. So I had 1 inch for that and 1.5 for joining allowance. You can decide not to add any joining allowance or seam allowance, whatever you are calling your own. So make sure you add it on your fabric. So here on the underbust, I took 2 inches for the waist. I'm going to add it back, and then 1.5 for joining allowance. So I'm going to do the same thing on my waistline. So I'm going to add 1.2 inches we took for that, and then 1.5 for joining allowance as well. So this is what I'm marking here. Okay, so here is my hip point. I have 11 inches for the hip measurement. Okay, 44 inches is the hip divided into 4 gives me 11 inches. I'm marking this 11 inches. I took 0.5. I will be adding it, and 1.5 for joining. So I'm going to measure what I have for the hip, and then I'm going to deduct 1.5. I'm deducting 1.5 from what I have for my hip measurements, and then I'm going to mark it at the lower part. Okay guys, I'm going to connect together right here. I'm placing my ruler to do this. So I'm going to mark it this way, connecting my bust to the underbust, to my waist, and then to my hip. I'm turning my hip cuff to connect my hip. So this is my hip. Okay, so I'm going to the down part. I'm connecting down part to the hip. Okay, so I'm marking it this way. This ruler is very short. That's why I could not mark once. Okay, having done this, I'm going to cut it out. I added 1 inch, so for the back, for the shoulder darts. So this gives me 8.5. We have 7.5, so I'm going to cut 0.5 plus 0.5, making 1 inch, and I'm going to cut it. Okay, so here I have 2 inches for that. I've added it. 2 inches, I've added it. 0.5, I've added it as well. So we are through and we are good to cut. Okay guys, this is what I have. I still have all my measurements intact. This is very simple to cut. We are moving to back panel. Okay guys, I'm going to square the line I made, the dot I made for the back panel, the width and the depth. Okay, so I'm squaring it this way. And I'm placing the same back measurement I used for the front panel. You know, I used 8.5, so I'm placing this 8.5 this way. So I'm placing 8.5 and I'm going to mark 8.5 and then I'm going to mark 7.8 for the armhole line. So from this point, I'm marking 0.5 for shoulder slope, and then I'm going to mark 7.8 for my hamula line. So this is what I'm marking here. I'm connecting the line together, the dots together. So 7.8 is my hamula line and I'm going to mark it here. So I'm marking 7.8. So I'll be marking my bust point, my waistline, and the hip point. So this is what I'm going to be marking here. And then I'm going to mark the length of the gown we are making and then the allowance. Okay, so this is what I will be marking. So I still have 38 inches for the length of the dress we are making. And then I'm going to include my allowance like so. Okay, so guys, I'm going to connect the lines together. I'm connecting it this way. Okay, so this is my upper chest. So I'm going to connect the hammer line. I'm collecting my hammer line, collecting it like so. And then I'm going to place my cuff ruler and cuff it. I'm cuffing the armhole. So, you know, this is back armhole. There's no need of going out 0.5 or 1 inch. Just cuff it like this. I hope you saw it. So just do this way. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to label this line. I have my bust line, my waist line. I have my hip line, and I have my full length as well as my hem allowance. So I'm going to place the dart I'm going to use from the shoulder. I'm placing it from the shoulder. You know, it starts from the shoulder. So I'll be marking it from the shoulder to the length of the gown we are making. Okay, I've connected the lines together, and this is back panel. So I will be using 0.5 for the both side, okay, so that it won't be obvious. So I'm marking 0.5 from the both side, but I later realized that 1 inch will be too much for back of that. Okay, so I used the central front alone. So I did not cut the other side. I only cut the center front 0.5. Okay, and you can decide to use 0.5 from the both side for your back or panel. So this is what I'm marking, but I'm not going to use the other one. I will use this or center front home. So this is what I will be using. So I'm going to connect the dots I made together. I'm connecting this dot together like so from the shoulder. I'm connecting from the shoulder to the down part of the gown we are making. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. Bust measurements. I took 0.5 for that on the center front. So I'm going to add it back 0.5, and I'm going to add 1.5 for joining allowance. And I'm going to do the same thing at the waistline. I have 8 inches for the waistline, 0.5 from the central front I took, and then 1.5 for the joining. And I'm going to my hip. I have 11 inches for the hip measurement. 44 divided by 4 gives me 11 inches. I'm adding 0.5 and then 1.5 for joining allowance. You can decide not to add 1.5 for seam allowance or joining allowance, whatever you are calling it. But make sure you add it back whenever you are cutting directly on your fabric. Okay? So what I have for the hip measurement, I'm transferring it to the full length, and I'm going to deduct 1.5 as I've done at the front panel. And I'm placing my ruler to connect the dots together. So this is what I'm going to do here. So what you are getting for your upper chest is what you are going to mark on your bust line. Okay, so I'm using my cuff ruler to mark my hip this way. So I'm going to draw a straight line to the length of the gown we are making. Okay, so this is what I'm marking here, and we are through. So it's very, very simple. So this is what we have. Okay, I used 0.5 from the central front, and I did not make use of the other one like I said. So it will be too much for me. This is back panel, so that's why I ignored the 0.5 I took. So I make use of 0.5 from the central front. Okay, and you can decide to use 1 inch depending on how your client or you yourself you want it. So I'm going to place my cuff ruler to cuff the neck. I hope you saw this. So this is what I have. This is very simple to draft and cut. You can place it to get your gown. Alright guys, I hope you enjoy yourself here on my tutorial today. So this is back panel. This is what we have for the back panel. So I told you I used 0.5 for the dart we made. So I'm going to trim the remaining allowance off at that side. So I'm going to trim allowance off, the remaining allowance at that point. Alright guys, this is the end of today's tutorial. I hope you enjoy yourself here on this channel. Please, if you like what I'm doing here on my channel, kindly subscribe to my channel, like my videos, share with your family and friends, and then hit the notification bell down there to get you an update as I will be uploading my new videos. And I will see you on my next tutorial. I love you. Bye.